Welcome to Intuitive Connection, where spirituality and psychology meet to help you be your best and brightest self. I'm your host, Victoria Shaw, and in each episode, I'll help you to awaken your own inner wisdom, step into your power, and live a more divinely inspired life. You're here to let your inner light shine. Are you ready? Let's do this. So hello and welcome to Intuitive Connection. I'm your host, spiritual guide, and intuitive counselor, Victoria Shaw. And today I'm super duper excited because we have a guest who's here for a reading, and a thing that she wants guidance on is so cool. So I'm really excited to see how this one's going to flow. So Jen, welcome.
Thank you so much, Victoria. I'm really excited for our reading today.
I'm excited too. All right. So tell listeners why you're here and what you would like from me and the guides.
So I am currently 23 weeks pregnant, and I am looking to connect to my baby in whatever way that he wants to be connected to me right now.
I love that. I love that question. And I have a quick short story to share before we tune into your energy, because you may find this amusing and listeners may find this amusing or not. But early on, when my gift started awakening and the intuition started flowing through, one of the things that I really wanted to do, because I've always had this uncanny ability, starting with my own firstborn child, to know the gender of a child just by tuning in. I'm probably around like 98%. I can think of like two examples. No, actually one example where I didn't get it right. I just know. And I knew with my own children, especially my daughter, I shared the story a lot. But when I was pregnant with her, I just knew it was a girl. And I had a slight preference for a boy because growing up, I thought it'd be cool to have an older brother. But yeah, I knew she was a girl. So anyway, but I've also often received guidance when a friend is pregnant. I've often just spontaneously tuned into that baby energy and, communicated messages that were helpful for the parent to know either now or down the line. And so I wanted to make that a specialty because I thought it was so cool. And at the time, one of my mentors kind of shut it down. She's like, don't start with that because it's not verifiable and no one will ever know. And who's going to trust you to ask you a question about their unborn child when they don't know anything else about you? So I shut it down. And that made me sad. So when you reached out with that question, I was so excited. Because I love doing these kind of readings. And usually I only get to do them for friends or existing clients. And so your faith in the process is amazing, but also I'm very excited to tune into your sweet little one's energy. And you gave me his name beforehand, which is Oliver. So I'm going to tune into his sweet energy now and see what wants to come through. And as I tune into Oliver, the first thing that he wants me to know, and I think you already kind of know this and feel into this, but the first thing that he wants you to know is that you have this won't be your first body hanging out together. And that's pretty common and typical in those close, intimate relationships, parent, child, spouse, oftentimes, best friends. Oftentimes we naturally choose or attract beings that we have danced with in other lifetimes. But he really wants you to know, and your guides really want you to know, that you've had a lot of lifetimes together with this little guy. And a lot I see of sort of brotherly energy. So I see one of you guys riding horses together across the desert where there was a really great camaraderie and you were either dear friends or an older and younger brother, but whatever, there was just a really great connection. And I see others as well. So you have a lot of connections in other bodies. And for the most part, the cool thing about that too is that most of the relationships have been very satisfying. And what that often means is that you've attracted this little guy into your space because it's going to be like when he is born, and you probably already feel that in his pregnancy, there's just a sense of, yeah, we belong together. Yeah, I know him. Yeah, like having this little guy in my world has already just helped me to relax and feel more confident and comfortable in who I am. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, my husband and I were trying to get pregnant for a long time. So once we did, it did feel like this sense of comfort and rightness,
Well, part of it is also because if I'm reading you correctly and the situation correctly, and always vet with your own experience, part of it too is that you have a deep connection with this particular soul.
Yeah.
And, it's my understanding, and it may not be yours. And if it's not, just let it go. But it's my understanding that, we don't just experience one lifetime, we experience multiple lifetimes, and they seem sequential when we're looking at it from our human eyeballs, but from our soul eyeballs, it's all happening at the same time, but you don't need to worry about that. And oftentimes we play in different bodies with the same other souls and spirits. We tend to have a soul group or other spirits that we get really comfortable with, and he is one of yours for sure. And you just have this really beautiful brotherly energy between you. And what he's telling me and what the guides are telling me is like, whatever he's going to do in this lifetime, he really did not want to do it without you there. And to some extent, vice versa. And just having him come into your life is going to give you a great sense of comfort and a great sense of peace that I don't think you'll have known before you reconnected with him in this body. So I think that's really special. Your guides also say, for what it's worth, if you want to have more children, I don't think it will be hard after this one. So
Hmm.
I see the potential of a girl coming into another child. Stick with the first one first, but they just wanted to give you that 411. Like sometimes that first one is the hardest, and then after that, it's pretty smooth. So he doesn't have the energy of someone who wants to be an only child. Don't worry if you don't want to have, he'll figure it out. It's interesting because he has sort of two faces. He has the personality of someone that is going to be pretty confident in himself and take up a lot of space, meaning he's going to know who he is and he's going to be pretty firm in that throughout his life. But he's also, he says he's a little bit of a charmer. He's a little bit of like, he has this kind of fun, playful energy. And though he may challenge you at times, he never really ever wants to really deeply upset you or hurt you or do anything that's going to like really mess with you or anyone else. He's like, I may push some limits sometimes, but I also have the energy of someone who really wants to do the right thing. And the words that come through is toe the line.
Mm.
So he'll be playing with those two dynamics because he is a pretty strong force, especially as he's going to express himself in this body. But there's also this really like loving, gentle, wanting everyone around him to feel good and get along. And so he'll be playing with those two aspects throughout his life. And I do see a sister. So you'll have to tell me some way down the line if that one comes true, because he's already talking about like, I want to have my sister. We're going to do this, that, and the other thing. So I'm going to be very protective of her, but I might be a little bit like, stay out of my way. So if that makes sense, that's the kind of energy that he has.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And that's so funny that you're bringing up the little sister because we really were excited to find out he was a boy because we wanted that like older brother to little sister dynamic. And we're hoping that the second will be a little girl.
So exactly what I said in my little opening story, that's hysterical. Yeah, I see it for you. Mine went the other way, but it still worked out really well.
Yeah.
All right. So tuning back in. Yeah. So that's sort of what he's telling me about how that one's going to go. And now I'm seeing the image of it's so interesting. It looks like a guitar strap. Do you know when you see like a guitar strap, the kind that are really beautifully woven?
Yeah.
Okay. It kind of looks like that, but it's not a guitar strap. It's like going across the body, but it's carrying like a bag, it's carrying gear. And this is, I think, your most recent or at least your most significant past life together. And again, I see you're in a desert climate. I see that you're on horseback because I can hear the clomp clomp of the horses. They're saying it was a difficult life in that it was sort of hard scrabble. There was a lot of work to be done. There was a lot of like kind of hands-on kind of things that you had to do. It wasn't an easy climate or an easy environment, but it was a really joyous life because the two of you together had so much fun. You just had so much fun. You had such like a great camaraderie, such a great back and forth. You kind of completed each other's sentences. There was a real sense in this lifetime that you were comrades. It feels like it may be in Mexico, or I keep feeling that you're speaking Spanish,
Mm.
or it could have been in the American Southwest, but it's like that kind of climate. And I think that you are some kind of tradesman. So you traveled the country. You might have even been like herding things that you sold across the country, if that is something that people did, or selling something. But I feel at times you definitely were herding, but you also traveled, and it was just a really nice time. It was just a really nice time. And I feel that that was probably your most recent past lifetime. The significance of it is a couple things. One, he really wants you to like see for some reason, like the artistry of the sack strap and the blankets that the horses used. And he said it was a time where, though, like, again, the work was sort of hard, there were these little like flourishes of art and abundance that you both really appreciated and you shared that together. And he says in this body too, you really like those little flourishes. You really like a good meal or a beautiful flower. You know, you're very not materialistic, but you do appreciate material things when they're done right. It's important to you. He even says that you could probably appreciate that a little bit more because the family that you came from hasn't let you fully express just how much you really love like art and beading and just sensual pleasures are really important to you. And in that lifetime, he said you both were really, because the life was physically like hard, it forced you to really enjoy all the physical flourishes that much more. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, that does.
And he says in this lifetime, he's probably going to go more towards being book smart in this body because he has a very drive to be successful. And this other past lifetime, too, you guys were very successful at what you did. And he was kind of the ringleader then. But you guys both really played off each other. He said he was very charming, very charismatic, and very strategic. But you were the nice one that like kind of softened his edges. And in this lifetime, he is managing those two aspects of self. He's going to be working again on managing those two aspects of self, but within one body. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, and it sounds a lot like, my husband's personality, like the drive and all of that, and I kinda balance him out.
Yeah, exactly. And so your little guy is going to be playing with both of those things inside one body. He has a real desire to make everyone happy. He's a bit of a pleaser, which I think you are. You're very much about just smoothing things over, making things soft, making things comfortable. You're very nurturing. And he has a little bit of that in him, but he also has this big strong drive. What he says he isn't going to be bringing into this body that he did in the other one that you balanced for him quite nicely, but that you don't have to do this time, is that other body, he was a bit of a player.
Mm.
Okay. He was a bit of a player. And he says he skirted the edges of propriety. So, another way of putting it, he's just so funny, is he's like, sometimes I did things that were just crossing the line legally, ethically, like, and you kind of like that about me because we were kind of was kind of like what, but he's like in this body, he says, Mom, you don't have to worry. I'm not going to be playing that card. I'm always going to color in the lines. Like, and if I color outside of the lines, like it'll be like appropriately outside of the lines. Okay. So you don't have to worry about that. Again, he says, like, I'm not going to get into any trouble. Like, I'll push limits sometimes, but only just to see where they are and to gently expand them. But I very much want to do the right thing in this body. And the end of that body, you might have had a really good time, but he might have gotten in trouble by crossing a line a little bit too much. And there was a lot of grief in that. So he wants to free you of that. In this body, you do not have to worry. Nothing bad is going to happen. He's not going to get himself in trouble. He's going to live a pretty straightforward life. And he says, too, I learned a lot from that body. And this is so sweet. He learned a lot from watching you in that body. And he's incorporated a lot of the things he learned from you into this go round.
Mm.
Ooh, I just got tingles.
That's so sweet.
Isn't that sweet? So one of the reasons he says that I am choosing you to be my mom is because I've learned so much from you in that body. Okay. And he also has a lot to teach you.
Mm.
Okay. So he says, I'm going to teach her about her own, how loving she is, how kind she is, but also where to stand up for herself. Okay. Because that's something that you're working on in this body. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
And how to claim space for yourself and how to say when enough is enough and how to say what you need, which is something that's still in development. And one way or another, he's going to help you with that, even if he just demonstrates it for you early on by being very good at doing it himself. Okay. But I think you guys are going to have a great time together. And he's really excited. There were two things coming in. I remember when you asked the question on Facebook, even to get this reading, part of the question, even though I don't think you were asking it consciously or intentionally, was wanting to know, am I going to be a good enough mother? Do I have this? And what he wants to tell you is, first of all, yeah. But because you guys have this great relationship, It's going to feel very natural to mother him. It's going to feel really easy, but you still have some hesitations. You still have some fears. Are you comfortable sharing some of those?
Sure. Yeah, I guess I do feel like it will be pretty natural for me. I think that where I have a little bit of fear and hesitation is just in so many other moms will tell me, "Oh, it's so hard. You're not going to get any sleep. Sleep now while you can," and stuff like that. And so I think that's where the fear is coming from. It's just like the societal expectation that it's going to suck.
Oh, I hate that.
And I don't want that, and I don't feel like it has to be that way.
I think that you should stay with your truth. Look, there are certain people that, the way they prepare you for things is to make it sound terrible. And it's the way of, I don't know why our world is structured that way, because of course, when we share the terrible and we focus our people's energy and attention on that, because of the great law of attraction, which you may or may not be familiar with, we tend to feed into those unnecessary energies and, reinforce those realities that don't necessarily need to be. He tells me, first of all, he's going to be a decent sleeper, except every once in a while, like if he's teething or he may have some tummy issues. So that's about the only time. But other than that, I don't see a colicky child or anything like that, even with the fertility treatments, which sometimes can throw things off. He's pretty solid. I do think that this is so interesting. He's going to run hot,
Mm,
but he's going to like to be bundled. Do you know what I mean? Like swaddled.
yeah.
Like for me, I'm a little older, so I run hot at night, but I need a certain amount of weight on top of me to sleep. So kind of like that. So just be thinking about that in terms of blanket him or swaddle him. A certain amount of pressure he's going to like, not tightly swaddled, but he might want like just a little bit of pressure, but he's going to overheat easily. Okay. That's like one thing that could wake him up. But he is going to need to be weighted down. So kind of what I see is like lots of blankets, colder room would be perfect for him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because I have been running hot myself since I got pregnant.
It's normal.
Yeah.
It's so normal. I remember, I got a coat during my pregnancy in the winter. And then, you don't lose all the weight or whatever, like, because with my second one, like I had him in September, right? But anyway, I just remember having a coat. And then after the pregnancy, being like, this was my winter coat last year. Like, how is this my winter coat? I'm freezing. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, so I feel like he's going to kind of mirror that. Like he's going to need bundling up because he likes to be bundled, but a cold room that will solve that problem. So that's kind of a weird thing. But I do think that, the motherhood journey for everyone, but especially for you, as you pose this question, is to learn to trust yourself, to learn to trust yourself, to learn to listen to your child and the needs of your child, which will be really unique. For example, people would say to my daughter who ran hot, like, aren't you bundling her up enough? And, that child, unless it was 20 below, like she got heat rash if I put too many things on her, right? So it's around learning to listen to your unique child and also to learn to listen to your own instincts and your own truth. Because what's going to happen to both you and your child, and this is just how the world works, is lots of people want to tell you their truth. And they want to
Mhm.
tell you how they want it to be, or they think it's going to be. And sometimes they even want to impose their pain and their frustration and their fears upon you because God forbid it goes easy for you and it didn't go easy for them. And then something's wrong with them. So I invite you to let it all go and know that you are perfectly poised for everything that you're going to experience. You have drawn in a firstborn that I think, will make it easy for you in a lot of ways because there's just such a compatibility with your souls and your energies. He says you're going to have a lot of fun together. And that he keeps saying, I'm going to show you what I need. I'm going to show you and you're going to listen. At times, you're going to have boundaries with me because I'm going to push a little bit. So it's going to teach you a little bit of backbone. It's going to teach you a little bit about how to care for yourself. It's going to teach you how to put your needs first and second at the same time. I know that's a paradox, but does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And he's going to help you with all of that. And I don't think he's going to be a terrible baby. Now, the last thing I want to talk about before we run out of time is his relationship with his father, because that seems important. And I'm going to check in with your husband's higher self. So they don't have exactly the same soul relationship that the two of you have. So I'm not saying that there have been arch enemies in other bodies, but I am saying that they're going to have more to work out in their relationship that's prickly or a little bit like unsmooth than the two of you have. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I don't want to put anything negative in your space because it's not negative at all. It's just a little heads up to know that they may not have the same relationship that you and your son have. And part of that can be because, and I've noticed this from my own experience, having one of each, when you have a child that is the same gender as you or reminds you of you in certain ways, stuff gets triggered. Because your own inner child comes into the room and you start to want to like, police your own inner child. And I wasn't comfortable with this. And now my kid is doing this and my kid's going to be just like me. And I'm not comfortable with me. And again, we can be present and work through all of that. So it's not necessary, but that tends to come out more, I have noticed, oftentimes in the child that is the same gender as the parent. Okay.
Interesting.
And I think that'll be a little bit about them. Some reflections for James on what it means to be a man, what it means to be a father, his own issues with his own father, and just their personalities are the same in some ways and then very different in others. And the ways in which they're the same, there might be a little bit of push and pull, but it feels like your son is going to want to do things differently than his father, and that may cause some tension.
Okay.
And what you need to know if and when that arises is it's not your job to enforce the law as your husband sees fit. And it's not your job to protect your son from the consequences of his own actions or even what he experiences with his dad. Now, I don't feel that his dad's mean or abusive or anything like that. So it's not about that, but they may have a different relationship. And so your job is not to stand between them and stop them from, having that relationship, even when it's a little bit murky. Your job is to kind of stand aside, answer questions as they are asked by your husband, and give him your 2 cents without getting too much in the way. Let him know what you're observing when you observe it. And then just do what you feel like you need to do as his mom. Okay. Because the way that I see parents and the way that it works best is you're each providing your child with a perspective. And you're also providing them with like a unique relationship, right? Like mom child relationship is different than dad child, right? And that's a cool thing. But if you hold firm in the perspective that you are presenting for him, he'll always be able to go there. And whatever dance he does with his dad will be between the two of them, but he'll always know the way that you see him, and that will always be there for him. Okay. So they don't want you to feel like you have to undo something or, get involved, or if something's hard to watch, you can give them both your opinion, or you can just walk out of the room as they get older,
Mhm.
you know? And as he's younger, of course, you can let your husband, he listens to you, so he will listen to your perspective. But don't try to change or fix. Just be there as a resource to both of them to navigate that relationship, which I'm not saying it's going to be terrible. I'm just saying it may not always be as smooth as the one that you have with him. Okay?
Right.
You want to know about your daughter?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or are we jumping the gun?
Sure.
I do see a little girl coming in. I really do. And we'll see, time will tell, but I do see a little girl coming in. I don't know that you'll have more than 2 kids. I think that I see a very complete family, but you do whatever you want. Don't listen to me.
I mean, that's what we have in mind is to, yeah.
Yeah, and I see that potential for sure. She's adorable. And I also feel like there's going to be a connection between her and your son. So as he comes in, again, he is very clear. I will own this family. I will make my space. I am the firstborn for a reason. And he may be, a little bit teasy and that kind of jam. But I do see another being, one that he's had a relationship with that he would like to bring in as a sister. And it's probably, I see the energy of past lifetimes as romantic partners, actually. So that could be very interesting.
Mm.
And brother, but I don't think they've ever been brother, sister before. And I think that he's kind of looking forward to that. And he's kind of looking forward to, she might have been his mom in another lifetime too, because he's looking forward to being the older one and the one in authority. So have fun with that. All right. Are there any other questions? There's one more thing coming through, but is there any other questions that you have?
Yeah, I think just asking my son, how can we best prepare him or ourselves, mostly with my husband, to be as supportive as can be with their relationship?
You're going to figure that one out as you go along.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. I don't want to put worry in your space. You'll see. What the guides want you to do is don't try to fix it for your husband.
Yeah.
Don't try to fix it for your son. Just be the constant that you can be in that relationship, and then you'll know. Just keep tuning in, but just don't try to fix it, is what they're saying.
Okay.
Okay. Allow that. We all attract in the exact relationships that we need for exactly what we want to explore and experience in this lifetime.
Yeah.
Okay. And those two may not have the exact same relationship, but that's okay. And in the other body that you were in, where your son, Oliver, who was, I think he was more your comrade than your actual brother, where he got himself in trouble. You may sometimes be afraid in the relationship with your husband because your husband has the authority that something bad will happen and you're going to reach in to protect him. And he doesn't want you to do that because you may have an elevated fear. Now that I'm telling you, you won't, but you might have based on that past lifetime, because I do think that it did not end well for him. But he also says that even though I left that body in a very dramatic way, that I think was traumatic for you, and it was a devastating loss for you. Like, he wants you to remember how much fun you had and how every moment was fun. And that's all you really need to do is live life to your fullest. And that's what he did, so that you experience much more pain from his demise than he did. When he left, he was ready to go.
Yeah.
He pushed the envelope as far as it would go and it fell off the table. Okay. And he's coming back to make it easier on you because he feels bad about having left you in a lurch. Like, he knows that you had things to process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a really good one. And he's going to be really interesting. I'm excited. Maybe you'll, in like 5 years, you'll come back and visit me and tell me how y'all are doing. And I'm getting a couple things, but he's showing me, do you have a nursery set up?
No, so we just have a 1-bedroom apartment, so he'll be with us.
Do you have something on the wall for him? I know, like, we also had a 1-bedroom with our first child, and this is what I'm seeing, which is really weird. So maybe they're showing me something around that. But so we didn't have a bedroom, but we had we had a bedroom, but just one. So we had like a bathroom, and we put like one of those sticky cling murals on the bathroom wall over the changing table, and that was like how we got our nursery thing out. Do you have something like that? Because he's showing me something like that.
We don't, but maybe we should.
Yeah, he would like something like that, like in the crib. It's for you, but it's also in welcoming him. I see the colors purple, deep blue, like those are really good colors for him. I don't know, like, if we're allowed to put quilts in cribs there, but I mean, everything always changes in terms of the
Yeah.
safety and all of that. But like, he'd like you to get some bedding, some colors, something that welcomes him uniquely.
Okay.
Even if it's like a throw pillow on the thing. He's saying that, like, in that past lifetime, he is going to be a very sensual being. He's going to be probably early on very sensitive to smells, especially, but also he may be one of those kids that he's going to want things soft, certain textures, like his sensory is very important. And then he says as he gets older, he will be a very sensual man. Like, he will, like a good cigar, a good whiskey, or really a good steak. Like, he's gonna really, again, enjoy the sensual pleasures because that's something about life he really likes. So he'd love you to welcome him with a few little flourishes in the nursery. And for some reason, I see dark blue, purple, maybe with like little bits of color. So almost like that Mexican feeling.
Mhm.
He would like something like that in the nursery. It could be a stuffed animal or something too, but like, just bring something with that color into the area. If it's your bedroom, wherever he's going to be, he would really appreciate, and you would appreciate that too. I remember we put that sticker thing on the wall because we didn't get to do a nursery. And so,
Yeah.
it gave us that experience as well. But he would like that for you and he would like that for him. But he says it's mostly for you.
Okay, cool.
Beautifulness. This was so fun. Thank you for letting me do this. And thank you, Oliver, for prompting your mom to be to do this. I think everything's going to go really, really smooth, from here on in. And I think it's going to be really wonderful. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, Victoria. This is so insightful
Yay.
to hear about all of this.
And he says too, sometimes the best things, you got to wait a little for them. He says, I am most definitely worth the wait.
I believe that too.
I think so. All right, my friend. This was a pleasure. Thank you for letting me do this finally and putting your faith in me. It's so cool. It's only like 15 years of coming that I've done this for someone I don't know. And if you are pregnant and want a pre-birth reading or any other kind of reading, you know that I do this not just on the podcast, but also as my bread and butter and my joy at the same time to clients all over the world and in person here in San Diego, California. So if that speaks to you, you can find out more information about how to book a reading with me on my website, victoriashawintuitive.com. Or you can just keep listening to all these episodes because I know that we all get so much out of each other's stories. And whatever you do, I appreciate you all so much. And namaste. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you found joy, strength, inspiration, and clarity from today's episode. If you'd like to learn more and connect with an amazing group of like-minded souls, please join us over on Facebook in the Intuitive Connection Community Facebook group, where we explore these topics in deeper detail, have additional live teachings, and host Facebook Lives with our amazing guests. I hope to see you there. And of course, if you want to learn more about me or the work that I do, please check out my webpage, victoriashawintuitive.com. Thank you so much again, and namaste.